crying out loud, we are not a democracy. I've been hearing this so much in mainstream media, on the news, outside, out and about. We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. Nowhere is the word democracy mentioned in the Declaration of Independence of the United States Constitution. How that could be? Our government is a type of democracy with sprinkles here and there of democracy, but we are truly and definitely a republic. The founders actually feared democratic rule. President James Madison expressed this attitude in the Federalist Papers, number 10. Instability, injustice, and confusion have in truth been the mortal disease under which popular governments everywhere perished. In the late 18th century, rule by the people was thought to lead to disorder and disruption. Yet democratically based government was seen as a superior to the monarchies of Europe. Democracies did not originate with the founding of the USA. The term democracy comes from two Greek words, demos, the people, and kratia, power of authority. So of course, democracy is a form of government that gives power to the people. Sounds good so far. Let's continue. That will change. Democracy is a lie. But how, when, and to which people? The answer to these questions changes through history. Democracies are based on rule of law. The ancient Greeks, particularly Aristotle, valued natural law. The notion that human societies should be governed by ethical principles found in native. The Greeks are famous for practicing direct democracy, a system in which citizens meet to discuss all policy and then make decisions by majority rule. However, only free males were considered to be citizens. The United States of America's founders preferred the term republic and not democracy. A republic described a system they preferred. The interests of the people were represented by more knowledgeable and wealthier citizens who were responsible to those that elected them. So this is what we are, a republic.
Oh, ain't that right? He ain't lying.
Freedom is our greatest gift from God. So guys, be careful and check this out. A widespread criticism of representative democracy is that the representatives become the elites. Does it sound like something we are seeing now?
Oh my God!
That seldom consults ordinary citizens, so even though they are elected, a truly representative government doesn't really exist. Let's get more context on this content. Live and in action. Editor, roll clips. Fair use.
From your book, Liberty versus the Tyranny of Socialism, you write, "We often hear the claim that our nation is a democracy. That wasn't the vision of the founders. They saw democracy as another form of tyranny. If we've become a democracy, I guarantee you that the founders would be deeply disappointed by our betrayal of their vision."
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. If you read the statements by Madison, Jefferson, and Adams, they condemn the idea of democracy. Matter of fact, you don't find the term democracy in any of our founding documents. That is, you don't find the word democracy in the Declaration of Independence. You don't find the word democracy anywhere in the United States Constitution. And if the listeners want further convincing of this, when we talk about when we pledge allegiance to the flag, is it to the democracy for which it stands, or the republic, or the song during the War of 1861? It was the battle hymn of the democracy or the battle hymn of the republic. Now, the founders thought that the idea of majority rule was a form of tyranny, and if you look at the Constitution, if you read the Constitution represents our rules of the game. It's a very it's an anti-majoritarian document. That is, the president is not elected by a majority vote. The president can veto the wishes of 535 people of Congress, and it takes 2/3 to override his veto. So there are many anti-majoritarian aspects of the United States Constitution, which represents our rules of the game. Any politician who would rigorously live up to his oath of office to uphold and defend the United States Constitution, he just would not get elected to office by the American people, because what politicians reflect, they reflect the values and views of the American people, that is, those who will elect them to office. Now, some people might say, well, gee, Williams, that's a little bit strong. Well, look, we just might ask ourselves, what would happen to a politician who had the vision of, let's say, James Madison, the acknowledged father of the United States Constitution? And in 1794, Congress appropriated $15,000 to help some French refugees. And James Madison stood on the floor of the House irate, and he said, and I'm virtually quoting him, he says, "I cannot undertake to lay my finger on that article in the Constitution that authorizes Congress to spend the money of their constituents for the purposes of benevolence." Now, if you look at the federal budget, 2/3 to 3/4 of it is for the purposes of benevolence. Now, just ask yourself, what would the American people do to a politician or to anybody running for office who would make a statement like Madison did, or make another statement? Madison he said that charity is not a legitimate function of government. Now, can you imagine what the American people would do to a politician who said that? And so what I'm saying is that politicians are reflecting the values and views of the people who elect them to office. And unfortunately, the values and views of most Americans are distinct from those of the founders of our nation.
So, Walter Williams, has the Tea Party movement been a positive in your view in American politics?
Well, I think so. It has been it's been a movement, or it's been a group of people who are saying, well, look, let's go back to the Constitution. Let's have constitutional principles. But whether they'll be successful or not is another matter. And keep in mind that, you know, if you look at the founders of our nation, they wanted very, very limited government. If you read in Madison's in Federalist paper, I think it's 45 or 48, and when he was trying to describe to the citizens of New York what was in the Constitution, to kind of get the citizens of New York to ratify the Constitution, he said that the powers that we delegated to the federal government are few and well-defined and restricted mostly to external affairs. Those left with the people and the states are indefinite and numerous. Now, if you turn that upside down, you'd have what we have today. That is, the powers of the federal government are indefinite and numerous, and those of the people in the states are limited and well-defined.
There's very little about explaining why a constitution is so important.
Could I try?
Is that a challenge?
Good. Well, I think that the Constitution represents our rules of the game, and it represents the relationship that we have between American and Americans and government. You'll hear some attorneys say, well, a narrow interpretation of the Constitution is wrong because the Constitution is a living document. And anyone who says that the Constitution is a living document is also saying that we do not have a Constitution, because for the rules of the game to mean anything, they have to be fixed. Or another way to put it is to ask you, how many of you would like to play me poker tonight and the rules be living? You know, maybe my two pair under certain circumstances can beat your three of the kind, you know. Now, the founders, in their wisdom, they gave us Article 5 because as a means to amend the United States Constitution, because they recognized that some changes might have to be made. But again, I think that the purpose of the Constitution is to lay out the rules of the game, and also the purpose of the Constitution is to limit what the government can do, to limit the power of Congress. I mean, if you read through the Constitution, there are about 40 restrictions on Congress. Or if you look just at the Bill of Rights, I mean, the Bill of Rights, the language of the Bill of Rights says, Congress shall not infringe, Congress shall not disparage, Congress shall not prohibit. I mean, all this distrust for Congress, because the founders knew that government was the enemy of mankind.
Well, okay,
but we need
let
some
me
government.
challenge you on this.
And I ask you, and I point out that when we die, and if at our next destination we see anything like the Bill of Rights, we know that we're in hell. Because a Bill of Rights in heaven would be an insult to God. I mean, that you cannot trust God.
Hey guys, it's Jose, your regular Joe Blow again, keeping an eye out and my ears open to how we've been bamboozled using the word democracy and how we should tread lightly because of how dangerous it is. When you start inviting socialism into our way of life, it always tends to go wrong. And since I think logically and do my research, you should also do your own research. The word democracy is not in our Constitution. Nowhere. Shout out and a big rest in peace to the late Walter Williams for opening my eyes to this. The United States was founded with much sacrifice, blood, sweat, and tears to even give in to these theories. We live by truth. Thank you all for the continued support. Thank you. And as always, guys, stay free.